what I want to start with is the baseball team. As the Phillies are preparing for the playoffs, as this final series wraps up this weekend against Minnesota. And I am very confused on how to handle the starting rotation. For a while, I thought it was as simple as Christopher Sanchez, Ranger Suarez, Jesus Luzardo. But last night, this happened.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out. And there it is for Aaron Nola. 1,872 strikeouts. And he stands alone in second place on the Phillies' all-time strikeouts list. Surpassing Robin. Roberts' only lefty Carlton remains ahead of him on the list. What an achievement for Aaron Nola.
Amazing. He went 8 innings, struck out 9, and he was even throwing perfect ball for a bit. So here's the question at 215-592-9494. Should Rob Thompson start Aaron Nola as the 3? Essentially replacing Jesus Luzardo in my hypothetical, where I thought it was Ranger, Sanchez, and then Luzardo. Would you look to Aaron Nola as that third spot in the starting rotation? It gives you a righty. I'm not sure if he's capable of being a bullpen arm. I don't think his stuff plays that way. And here's an analogy for you. If you're Rob Thompson, you are a captain of a ship, and there's a big storm coming, and you have 2 crew members with you. One of those crew members you've been with forever. He's helped you with some of these big storms in the past. He may not be the most crisp you would like him to be, but you know there is a track record when a big storm hits, he's done all the right things on your ship to be able to handle that adversity and get you places safely. The other crew member is new. He's done a good job in the short amount of time with you. There's been ups and downs. He's new, though. He doesn't have the resume with you the way option 1 does. Well, option 1 is Aaron Nola. You've already been through the grind. You've already been through the tough times. He's already helped you get to a World Series. He's helped you in NLCS games. He's been one of your staples for a long period of time. And even in this new era of Phillies baseball, this new core that we've been watching over the last couple of years, he's been a big part of it. Should Rob Thompson look at his direction? I'm very confused. It's not something that I say yes to with a lot of conviction. And I'm an Aaron Nola guy. So in case you didn't know, I'm a supporter of his work. I don't think he stinks. I don't think he's a bum. I don't think he's this. I don't think he's that. Now, he's having a bad year. And I write this year off, or at least I wrote it off for a good portion of the season. But I do believe in his stuff. And the way I look at it, his ceiling tops any of these other options. Luzardo ceiling, Buehler ceiling, obviously Taijuan Walker ceiling. If you get the great Aaron Nola, if you get the tippy top of Aaron Nola, I mean, that plays as great as Christopher Sanchez's stuff. So do you have to take that calculated risk if you are the manager? And I'm starting to convince myself that the answer may be yes. Again, not the most confident yes I've ever had in my life. But when he's on, you see what he's capable of doing. He's going 8. He's striking out 9. And yeah, there may be a homer or two. Some people scream too much when he allows a homer. You're allowed to allow a homer. If he allows 1 homer, oh, here we go again. Shut up. He's perfect before that homer. Shut up. Guys allow homers. Sanchez allows a homer. Wheeler has allowed homers. Zip it. When he's cooking, though, It's outrageous. 215-592-9494. Should Rob Thompson look to start Aaron Nola in the first three starters? I'm not talking the fourth, because obviously if you go Sanchez, Ranger, and Luzardo, once you get to these longer series, he may play a Noah Syndergaard role. He may play a Bailey Falter role. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about as part of the three-headed monster. Let's take a listen to Rob Thompson, who spoke yesterday after the game about Aaron Nola's performance. This is what he had to say.
You said in Arizona you were really encouraged by Nola's start out there. Is there anything from specific he took from that start and improved upon tonight?
Well, I think everything was better tonight. And it was good in Arizona, but I thought everything was better. The curveball, the control of his curveball, he threw it behind the count. He had some swings and misses with it. The changeup was really effective on the left-handed hitters. The fastball come in, the comeback fastball on the front hip fastball on the left-handed hitters. He was just better. I mean, that was the best he's been all year.
I am fascinated to see how Topper handles this, knowing he does respect his veterans. He does respect the big-time names. He respects the guys he's been going to war with. And that's not to discredit what Luzardo has been outside of that weird state where he was sort of maybe tipping pitches, maybe not tipping pitches, struggling when he was out of the stretch, when there were base runners on and all that. You know, he found his groove again, and I give him a lot of respect for that. And even if Rob Thompson looks in Aaron Nola's direction, I don't think that's discrediting Luzardo's season by any means. But you do know Rob Thompson really does appreciate the veteran core, the guys that are supposed to have certain roles, and he gives them long leashes. And I wonder if that's going to play into his way of thinking. And truth be told, even if Aaron Nola gets the nod, it's okay if you do go that way, and then also recognize if there's 1 second of doubt, we're going to pull him. It's okay to say his ceiling is significantly higher than anyone else, but knowing the trajectory of this season, the second I see something that causes discomfort for me as a manager, Rob Thompson, I'm putting myself in his shoes, then we're yanking him. Just have a super short leash on it for the particular game. And I'm okay with that. I believe I'm talking myself into being okay with that. Let's go to the phones. Let's hear from the people. 215-592-9494. Let's go to Jim in Morgantown. What's going on, Jim?
Hey, Brodes, what's going on?
Not much. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good, Brodes. Let me bring you back down,
please.
I want to know if Nola had a typical outing, an unfortunate outing last night, would you be so hyped as you are right now?
No, absolutely not.
I mean, I feel like you went out on your first date. It went well. You went and told your buddy, she's the one. She's the one. She's the woman of my dreams. Listen, I would be comfortable if Nola, given his ceiling, I'm in agreement with that. Is him being the fourth starter? Because in the 7-game series, if we make it to the championship series, him being 4 is going to be better than the other team's 4.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree with Jim. I do agree with you that, like, heading into last night, I thought it was pretty basic and clear that it's the three guys I mentioned, Sanchez, Ranger, and Luzardo, and then that fourth would be, Nola. Maybe you can get cute and creative with the way you use Walker Buehler, but if Nola was your 4, then okay. But then I guess I was reminded of what Nola is when he's at his peak, and he was throwing perfect through 6. What if, though, Jim, let me play the other side. What if you are in a big-time series in the NLDS, you're facing the Dodgers, it's Game 3, and Aaron Nola gets the nod, and he throws 6 shutty and puts you in a phenomenal position to win? That's not impossible. That is something that could happen, and you may be able to win a Game 3 because of his excellence. That's not impossible, even though it feels like it might be.
No, very possible, but that decision has to be made beforehand. Like when you're on the cusp of that game 3, who do you go with? Like, what do you do? Because it is possible. It's possible that that he could do what he did last night, but it's also possible that Luzardo can do what he did his last 3 games. What is it, bro? It's like 10 plus Ks Luzardo's past 3 games.
Yeah, now that's interesting to bring up, obviously, if I'm going to look at Aaron Nola's most recent performance. Let's look at what Luzardo's been doing. But I guess, and maybe this shouldn't play a role in the thought process, but do you feel Aaron Nola can be a bullpen piece, and do you feel Luzardo can be a bullpen piece? And I guess I feel Luzardo's stuff works better there, and if that's the case, is that something that you factor into the equation that, I don't see Nola's stuff playing out of the pen, but Luzardo's can. So would that just be a better way to structure your playoff roster if you know that's the case? But maybe I'm overthinking this.
Yeah. I mean, if we had to consider that scenario, in a post-game interview with Nola, he said he pitched out of the bullpen 1 time in college. So I just, I don't know if with the pitcher, bros, it's a mindset thing. Mm-hmm. But if that scenario painted itself, I would agree that I would see Luzardo out of the pen. I just hope we don't, get to that. I hope we could just identify them as game starters.
Sure. No, and I'm with you, Jim. Thank you so much for the phone call. So it seems for Jim's view on this and how I feel, and as we talk through this, I'll figure out why I feel the way that I do. That's what happens here. Maybe I'm allowing last night's game to influence me too much. But here's the thing, right? I've defended Nola more than anybody has this year, believe it or not, which I don't know if I'm happy about, proud about. I don't know how I feel about that. But it was the reminder. Brodes, that's why you feel the way that you do about him. He can go 8. Now, I'm not saying in the playoffs against a Dodgers team he's going 8, right? But I'm saying the reason why you believe in Aaron Nola and the reason why you think he's a lot better than everybody else and the reason why you respect his stuff is because he has that in him. Now, it hasn't been consistent this season. It's been all over the place. There's been injuries. There's been long stints. He hasn't been on the IR in his career in a long time. I don't know where he's at physically, obviously, with the stoppage throughout the middle of the season for him in particular, trying to ramp back up, get himself in a good space, get some starts underneath of his belt. He's probably thrown into one of the most chaotic years that he's ever gone through, and especially in quite some time. So I don't know, but that last night, that's difference-making starting pitching. That's elite starting pitching. And he's got it in him. You don't go to the World Series, right? We always talk about 22. They went to the World Series and this and that. Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler were the reasons why you went. He was a part of the reason why you went there. Aaron Nola has been a part of the reason why this franchise has been a team that's constantly making the playoffs, constantly making deep runs. He's been a part of that. That's an Aaron Nola factor for me. And I don't know what to do. I'm not saying if you choose to keep him as the 4th starter, you're dumb, you're stupid. Sometimes I come on here and there's a clear, hard stance that I believe very much so in. This is one of those where if you think, Brodes, I understand where you're coming from. It's just not the year for Nola. I don't think it's time to take that gamble. He hasn't been able to build consistency for a bit now this year. So I'm going to go with our strength, which is my belief in the 3 guys you mentioned. That's understandable. I do believe keeping him as the 4th is understandable. I do. I think that's fair. I don't think that's irrational. I don't think it's too emotional to the side of Nola where you think he's just a flat-out bum. I think there's a logic in that decision. But last night, I don't know. I don't know. But last night, I saw that greatness. There was the twinkle in my eye.
A lot of memories.
There was a twinkle in my eye. I'm just so ready for the playoffs. It's unbelievable. Like last night, I'm watching. I'm enjoying because I appreciate Aaron Nola still, unlike many others. But I'm done. with this regular season crap. I want to have the pit in my stomach of anxiety knowing it's playoff ball. I want to know when there's a man on first base, I start to sweat. All right, I want to know when the Phils have guys on first and second, one out, the juices are flowing because every pitch matters. I'm ready for the crippling anxiety of playoff baseball. I'm ready for it. And I hope I don't say that and then I vomit all over myself in 3 games against the Mets or the Dodgers or the Reds and then cry because, well, I've had my heart broken before and I know what that's like. So let's not speak that into existence. 215-592-9494. What we're talking about today, though, is I'm just very confused. As a fan of Aaron Nola's work, knowing that this season wasn't his best, when I watch him, I think I said he went perfect through 6. He in the 6th is when the perfect game got blown up a little bit there. But when you're pitching that well yesterday and you go 8 and you just see what his ceiling is when he's on, it makes me wonder about Rob Thompson's decision when lining up this pitching staff. Sanchez and Ranger, they're locks. I thought Luzardo was a lock at 3, but is there something to be said about Nola maybe being the 3rd starter and Luzardo being a 4th, and Luzardo being more in the Syndergaard, Bailey Falter role, and Nola getting the nod as a part of the big-headed, 3-headed monster? I'm leaning towards I'm intrigued. And I wrote it off as probably not going to happen this year. We'll see what happens after the offseason with Knowles to get him back on track. But then last night happened, and it makes me wonder what if. Because let me lay this hypothetical out, and then we'll get right back to your phones or your calls. What if he shoves in a Game 3, and now you're set up with Luzardo in a Game 4? Everyone acts as if it's just automatically bad if he gets the ball. But what if it's not? What if he is going 6 scoreless, and then you go to your pen 7, 8, 9? What if he goes 6 and allows 1 earned run? What if he goes 6 1/3 and allows 1 earned run? 8 Ks, shoves, win that game, and now you're set up with a Luzardo in a Game 4. You're set up beautifully. And that's very possible. He's very capable of pitching extremely well. It makes me wonder. What would you do? 215-592-9494. Let's go to Kevin. What's going on, Kevin?
Hey, Brodes. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I work up in New York with a bunch of Mets fans. I think one thing that we need to touch on here with Aaron Nola is that I think sometimes the Mets, if we end up playing the Mets, they kind of live in his head a little bit. I think that Soto was pitching, and I loved it when he I think it was against Soto when Soto stepped out of the box and, Luzardo was into it. He was energized. He was pissed off that, the ump, even though it would have been a ball, didn't let the pitch play. I think that, depending on who we play is who we start. And I think if we're playing the Mets, we got to go with Luzardo.
Okay. And listen, the Mets, I'm going to actually look through maybe some of Aaron Nola's stats versus the Mets in particular. I don't know that off the top of my head what it looks like. But the Mets, just in general, it's funny. I was talking to TK about this before I hopped on. The one thing that scares me is if the Phillies play the Mets, it's not really the Mets that would scare me, even though that means they beat the Dodgers. But it's just the Phillies. The Phillies almost shooting themselves in the foot because of the mental battle and the mental hurdle of the Mets that would scare me more than the Mets themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I tend to agree. And, it was interesting because you saw when we were up there, I mean, they swept us. We come back down to Philly, we sweep them. I think there's, definitely the stadium, plays a part in it. But I think, kind of like you were hinting to earlier, I think either way, whoever you go with, you got a solid Game 4 option. You can always pull Luzardo, if he's not pitching well. You can pull Nola if he's not pitching well and sub in the other guy.
Exactly. And Kevin, thank you for the call. And I guess the one thing that would make that game plan a little shaky is you pull him instantly, but there's nothing you can do about it because you have to yank him, would be one of the strengths of Nola. Not the strength. How do I say this? I see him sometimes have a bad first, and then he pitches 6 and does well the next 5 innings. And I guess my fear would be if you yank him because he has a bad inning, would you miss out on the length that he'd give you once he settles in? But you don't have the time. You just don't. You should be more upset with Aaron Nola for having that stinker of an inning early more than being mad at Rob Thompson for having a quick trigger on the decision, because you have to have a quick thought if you're watching Aaron Nola have a bad first. But part of what he does sometimes is he does struggle for an early inning and then he settles in nicely. The alternative sometimes is he looks really good, you keep going to him, and then he has a bad 5th. Then he has the one bad blow-up inning. But at that point, you already got through 5. The difficult issue is if the first inning is the tough one and he can still give you length to give you 6, and all the damage was done in the first inning, but you end up going to your bullpen and you miss out on those 5 other innings that Aaron Nola could have threw. That's where things get a little shaky if you're Rob and you have to sort of have your hand on the pulse. So Aaron Nola's numbers versus the New York Mets. His last start, this is just according to StatMuse here, and I'm just looking back at, that was 2020. Oh, okay, never mind. I have to pay to unlock some of this data. Well, guess what I'm not doing? I'm not paying to unlock that data. I'll tell you that for free. We'll dive deeper in some of the numbers, but I am afraid of the Phillies being afraid of the Mets. That is true. It's not about the Mets. The Mets stink. They stink. They might not even get in because of the Cincinnati Reds of all teams. So they're bad. But that hurdle of the Mets, even though they handled the Mets at CBP in that 4-game set, that's not the same as NLDS, revenge from last year, knowing how much we're walking on eggshells because we're just scared that something bad could happen and then you need him to execute. So real quickly here, I do want to touch on the Duran thing. And I'm curious if anybody feels shaky on Duran. He still gets the job done at a high clip, but what we once thought was unstoppable, we once thought that 9th inning was game over. You get to the 9th, it's game over. You automatically win. The other team shouldn't even step into the batter's box. It's no longer that. And is there something to this ain't Minnesota no more? Okay, this is Philadelphia. The pressure, the talking points, the narratives. You have to get this thing done. Is there something to that? It's not the Minnesota Twins. How many people watch the Minnesota Twins? 6? We're debating if Aaron Nola deserves a playoff spot in the rotation. It's a different animal here. Is there anything to that? The stakes being this high? I don't know. But he's definitely leaked some oil since those first couple of saves. Homers have been hit off of him. He allows a couple of hits. There's base runners on. He may get out of it. But, man, are you getting tight? I didn't think it would get like this ever. Let's go to Tim in Bluebell. What's up, Tim?
Hey, great show. I haven't called in a while, but you hit on something that I think is very timely and I think necessary to think about.
Well, thank you very much, Tim. I appreciate it, and I agree with you.
Yeah, I think you remember Charlie Manuel.
I've heard of him.
I believe he used. Yeah, I know you've heard of him. Yeah, I believe he used to call him the Bulldog, and he did it for a good reason. He's a competitor. You don't think so? His facial expressions and the way he carries himself does not lead you to believe that he's a bulldog. But underneath, he is. He's a fighter, and I think. He's always been pretty good in the playoffs, and I think you're right on the money. I would absolutely start him number 3, and I think that's the right place for him because it is, we don't know what's going to happen in the first 2 games.
Right.
We don't know.
And Tim, listen, if you're watching the game and you realize it's not it, you don't have to stick with Aaron Nola for 6 innings and just live with the results here. I mean, all hands on deck. I think it's okay to acknowledge you can start Aaron Nola, but also know that if things look the way that it has for Aaron Nola this year, then, and I'm sure Topper would sit down with Aaron and say, hey, listen, this is what I'm thinking. I really respect everything you've battled through this season. I love you. You know that. You're a warrior. I'm going to give you this opportunity to start a Game 3, but if there are some things that I don't necessarily, like when I see them, I'm going to make a decision. And I bet you Nola would say, all right, let's go, baby. Let's go to war.
Absolutely. He's a great player as a teammate, and for a manager, you don't get better. And I think this is playoff time, and the decision making is completely different from the way it is during the season. So, yeah, he would absolutely understand that. I'm more than sure, and I think it's the right call.
Yeah, me too, Tim. Well, I'm starting to lean towards I think it's the right call. I'm not coming in with it full on blast. This is what they have to do. I don't know if I fully feel that throughout my veins. Maybe I do by 5:30 when we wrap up the show. Maybe that's something that over time, the more and more I hear some of you at 215-592-9494, and the more and more we talk through this, I feel even more confident about it. But I'm in a spot where I'm absolutely willing to look in that direction. And I'm leaning towards, I like the idea of it. But it's not to the point where I'm 2 feet in saying I'm selling my soul 1,000%. It must be Aaron Nola. Because there are things that you could sell me on the Luzardo side of. You're not a dumb manager if you decide to go with Luzardo for a Game 3 over Aaron Nola this season. You're not a dumb manager. That's not irrational. It's not stupid. It's not embarrassing. It's not the dumbest thought ever. But same applies to looking at Nola. If you see his track record, if you see what he just did with the final game, what if the reason why he was so sharp? Now, we'll never know this, and it's very hypothetical. But what if Rob sat down with Nola before this game against the Twins and said, I want you to go out there like this is Game 3. This is Game 3. This is my test to you. This is for your playoff start. Let's see what you got. And then he goes and throws 6 perfect. No, you could say the Twins suck, Brodes. And that's not the same as either maybe a Mets team or a Cincinnati team that beats the Dodgers, and this lineup isn't the Dodgers. I understand. But just from the mindset standpoint, he puts your back up against the wall and said, deliver. This is it. This is for your start. Let's see it. I believe in you. And then he goes and throws 8 with 9 Ks. And he gives you perfect through 6. Would that tell you anything about his stones, if you will? Would you feel differently about that? It's fascinating to study. It really is. 215-592-9494. Should Rob Thompson start Aaron Nola as the 3? So it'll go Sanchez, Ranger, Nola. With Luzardo then being your 4, that's a damn good Game 4 starter. We used to start Noah Syndergaard and Bailey Falter. Imagine if that's now Luzardo. That's a big-time difference. I'm very open to this. And I wasn't open to it, let's say, 2 weeks ago. But things have changed. Coming up next, we will get to your phone calls, and let's look more at this bullpen. Is Duran leaking oil? We'll talk about it. It's Brodes with you. We're just getting started right here on 94 WIP. Let's go to Drew in Westchester. What's going on, Drew?
Hey, Brodes.
What's
How
up?
are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Hey, yeah, really enjoyed the call late the other night. We talked about the Eagles football era that we're in and how great it is.
Yes.
And, enjoyed that quick chat. But just calling in today about Yohan Duran, and, you're asking, is he leaking oil? And I think he very well could be. I mean, I looked at his stats, and, he's been in 70 games this year, which to me is a lot, for a guy who throws as hard as he does. And 70 innings in 70 games, and so I'm no expert, but as hard as he throws between warming up and pitching, I mean, he could be a little beat down, And so I'm hoping that between today and next Saturday that, like, he gets some good rest, and hopefully it's nothing more than that and he's not hurting anyway. But, I mean, I think he's logged a lot of miles this year.
It's possible, no doubt. And I guess it kind of relates to something that when I was listening to a little bit of the afternoon show, I forget which week this was, but Jack was mentioning that sometimes they show his face and he's got this look almost of not knowing why this is happening. And maybe that aligns with what you're saying, which is, he's reaching back, he's throwing 100-something, he's doing some certain things with some breaking pitches, but he is just maybe hitting a wall physically, and maybe he's not used to hitting a wall, so he feels, I'm doing everything right. I'm doing what I know I'm capable of doing. I'm reaching back. I'm throwing 100. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And maybe he's just confused himself on why it's happening with that look. But the truth is, it's just, dude, you got a lot of miles on the tires right now, and maybe he's having a hard time maneuvering through that.
Yeah, and not even counting the games that he warms up but doesn't come in. So, he's pitched a lot this year, and what I've noticed in some of these games, he's getting hit a little. It just seems like his command is a little bit off. He's leaving a lot more balls right in the middle, right in the heart of the plate, as opposed to, on the corners like he was doing initially when he got here. And so, that could be fatigue related or just just a little bit of just tired soreness related, et cetera. I don't know, but I'm just, like I said, I'm just hoping he gets a good amount of rest in the next. When did he pitch? Last night, I guess. But, I'm hoping he gets a solid week of rest right now, and I think that'll probably go a long way to helping him.
Sure, that's the beauty of the bye week. When other teams are competing for the wild card and a berth in the NLDS, you can kind of let your guys relax and recover and get to where they need to be. Now, Drew, your thoughts on Nola? Are you confident in him after last night's start? Would you start him over Luzardo if you were Rob Thompson? How do you see this?
Well, I'm a Nola fan, so I'm just gonna say it right there. I'm a big Nola fan, and I just think he's an excellent pitcher, and I just think he's been so durable for this team, and he's gonna end up being very high on the list of all-time wins for the franchise eventually, and so I'm a Nola fan, and if he he's pitched fairly well. He's been up and down obviously since he's come back, but I think depending on the situation, in other words, I heard people talk about matchups, earlier callers, and if we're playing a team that has handled, depending on how the team handles Sanchez and Ranger in the first two games,
right,
against the two lefty pitchers, isn't that going to say a lot about should we just run out another lefty right now, or should we throw Nola? So I think those first two games are going to be a big tell about that, and if the lefties are dominating the lineup that is put out there against lefties, then maybe Luzardo. If not, maybe Nola. So that's kind of how I would look at it.
You know what, Drew? I really like that answer. Thank you so much for the call. I like that answer. You're right, though, because if you're throwing out Sanchez and Ranger, and let's say they do okay, you could live with their starts, but the other team got to them a little bit, and you saw some things where right-handed bats were able to execute and put together some really strong ABs and had some answers. And, well, maybe there's more to an Aaron Nola there to give them a different look, to give them sort of a totally different repertoire. But if Sanchez and Ranger both excel and look dominant, what if they both go 7 shutty? And I know that sounds crazy. I'm pulling a best case scenario out there. But if they both go out there and throw 7 shutty in 2 consecutive games, I could totally understand giving them another lefty look. Or Nola just goes out there and throws 7 shutty of his own in our first 3 games, and an NLDS is 7 shutty from each of our starting pitchers. I'm not dreaming. Right? I'm not painting the best picture in the world possible and hoping that comes true or anything. There might be something to how the first few games go. I also wonder, though, fair or unfair, how much time does Luzardo or Aaron Nola deserve prior, knowing what they're going to do? Because if Aaron Nola is not going to start game 3 and he's a bullpen arm, you might, I don't know, use him in game 1 or game 2? I don't know. Maybe not. But do they deserve to know what their role is? If Luzardo isn't going to start a game 3, he'd start a game 4. You know what? They're probably going to use them as the game 4 starter regardless. Maybe.
Well, then that means if you're already sold on the Nola over Buehler, that means Buehler could go game 1 or 2.
The pen.
Yeah, out of the pen instead. I mean, depending on who you choose for that game 4.
You might need him as a backpack for game 4.
Right.
You might need him for a backpack.
Right. So then Taiwan.
I don't know if Taiwan's used.
Yeah.
I don't think he's used.
Over under 2 innings the entire playoff series?
I'd go under.
Yeah.
I'd go under. I respect his veteran presence. I respect the fact that there was once a time where it looked like that guy couldn't give you anything in the 8th inning. But I think he maxes out and caps out with what he's given you all regular season long. I think that's sort of what it is for him. And I give him a lot of respect. It's not easy to be the guy who gets paid all this money to come here to fight with Rob Thompson by liking tweets. And then right after that was kind of snipped. No one ever talked about it again. They both got over it. They seem to have a really good, strong relationship, a nice bond. He's worked himself into that 5 spot in the regular season to be an every 5th day starter to eat some innings. But I think that's sort of where it caps off for him. I don't think there's a real role for him in the postseason. But forget who's going to come out of the pen, this or that. Just from a do they deserve to know, your mindset is game 3 starter before the postseason even begins. Because as much as I like Drew's answer, as we talk about it out loud, there is something to be said about, I need you locked in, Knowles. He needs to know. I don't think you just tossed that on him after game 2. Hey, this is how game 2 went, so I think we're going to lean towards Knowles. I think Knowles needs to know today. Be ready, dude. Be ready. You're getting game 3. And same applies to Luzardo. It's not just a Nola thing. I think Luzardo deserves to know. This is how it's going to be managed. This is how I want you to lock in for the postseason. Everyone talks about it with the bullpen, right? You got to know when your number is going to be called. You got to know what the rhythm is. You got to know you're a 7th guy, an 8th inning guy, a closer guy. There's roles for a reason. You know when it's your space on the bump. You know when it's your number that's going to get called upon. I think some of that applies to game 3. I do. I think that matters. So, as much as I like Drew's answer there, now I'm starting to backtrack a little. That's what I do. I throw everything on the table, and then we look through it. It gets a little messy sometimes.